Hello. Welcome back to the 4th episode of Shit's Hard. This week, we're going to be talking about entertainment, specifically the entertainment industry, but I thought that would be too long of a title. So we did Entertainment is Hard. Also, just before we get into it, I think I decided a little structure that I want to go for my podcast. So I think I'm going to start off with an intro of just an overview of what we're going to be talking about. And then I'm going to go into the body, the dirty deets, and we're going to just go into each thing. And then I think right before the end, I want to do a little shit we're talking about. No, sorry. I don't know why I said that. Shit we're working on this week. So I'm just going to have my own personal, issue or career problem or whatever that I'm going to be working on for the next week. So just something that I realized this week I need to work on. So yeah, we're going to go over shit we're working on this week. And then I'm also always going to have a poll or a questionnaire at the end of my podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, after you listen, you can answer the poll or for the comments, you can type in your own answers. So I think every week I'm going to have at least a question that says, what shit are you working on this week? And you can answer me there and we can talk about what you're working on in the next episode. And then I'll have other questions there too that are more specific to each episode, but and then we'll just go into the outro and just kind of close out. So that's what I'm thinking. So for this episode, like I said, we're talking about entertainment. So I just kind of want to start with 7 months ago. I was graduating college in Ohio with a Bachelor's of Science in Architecture that I didn't really want. And yesterday, I went to the Streamys live in Los Angeles. So things are changing pretty fast, it seems like. But I kind of want to talk about that and talk about, I don't know, just how, you got to adapt quickly out here. That's for sure. One thing about LA, you got to be ready for change. I'm still relatively new to this industry, though. I've only been in LA for 3 months. So, or 4 maybe, I guess, since August. So I really have not been here long. And I guess with that, so I guess maybe you're wondering, okay, if you've only been in Los Angeles for 4 months with literally no background in entertainment, only in Instagram, it's really not blown up or anything like that. And a podcast that's also not necessarily huge. How did you end up at the Streamys? How are you there? And I will answer that. But I guess what I'm wondering is how do I take advantage of my current quote unquote foot in the door in the entertainment industry and make it work for me, make it work for my own career type of thing. So to answer the question, how after 4 months in LA did you end up at the Streamys? And if you've already listened to a few episodes, you would already know I am an assistant to an influencer. So I attended the Streamys as a work event, pretty much. I was there to work. I was there to shoot content, and that didn't make it any less fun by any means. But I had to be paying attention and shooting and filming, which I did, and it was still super fun. It's honestly kind of fun to do that too. But because it's interesting, I'm not there as talent, so it's I don't want to be I'm not there to enjoy the event, but I'm not, if I was there as a nominee, it would be different. But it was fun to be there to shoot content and meet a lot of cool people too. So, but another thing that I want to talk about is your own brand. So being at the Streamys and being in different rooms with different people, obviously, like I said, being an assistant for this influencer has opened up me to a lot of opportunity. Obviously, maybe not blatantly, and no agency is signing me today, but I've met a lot of people. I've been able to network, just socialize, that kind of thing. And just kind of be in the room, which is obviously a huge advantage, especially for only being out here for 4 months. But I want to talk about having your own personal brand, because for me, it's introducing yourself. Do I introduce myself as, oh, I'm her assistant, or, oh, I have my own podcast? Obviously, as I'm at these events, I want to talk about my podcast because I want to be seen as another creator, and I do want this podcast to do well. but also it feels dishonest in a way for some reason. But you also do need to fake it until you make it. So it's like anybody can say they're a creator, and there's pros and cons to that, because it's just like anything else. Like if you want to be a model, you should just be saying that you're a model and booking, and obviously actively booking things, working on things, maybe working on shoots at home, creating your own digitals, hopefully until you can get signed or whatever. But like it's kind of like, acting like you are one until you become one, and eventually you just will be one. So it's like I do want to like introduce myself as a creator, because I am. I did create this podcast, even if it's not like necessarily huge yet. Hopefully it will be. No, just kidding. Not hopefully. It will be. But that doesn't make it like any less of like a creation. It doesn't make it any less a piece of like my own work that I put a lot of effort and work into. But it feels a little bit fake. But I don't know. But my own personal brand is kind of what I really was thinking about this weekend, because obviously I was introduced to a lot of people. I met a lot of people with the girl that I influence and without her, just because, we get socializing, we get separated sometimes. And so it's like, I don't know. I ended up kind of being like, I'm actually a creator. I have my own podcast, but I am here as an assistant to an influencer. Kind of just saying both. Especially when I'm with her, it's obviously like, you're here as an assistant. But my own brand is like, I want to hone in on my own brand, hone in on who I am, what I represent, what am I trying to do here, and also like work on like how do I convey that to people, because when I'm being introduced to these people and I say I have a podcast, a lot of them will ask, oh, what is it about? And for some reason I wasn't prepared for that question. Obviously I know what it's about. I wrote the whole thing. So, but it's like, how do I convey that in 30 seconds with a good hook and keep people like interested, but also like, how do I prove that this podcast is different than every other, just girls chat room podcast, I guess. And how do I do that quickly? So that's something that I realized at the event, that I was like, all right, I need to work on that. I need to work on like essentially like my pitch, I guess, because obviously, there's like at this event, there was tons of networking, and then there was an after party, and there's an after party. So it's like tons of opportunity to talk with people about, because nobody there cares if like they don't immediately recognize you. I think a lot of people don't recognize a lot of influencers because they just don't know. They just don't all know each other. Like obviously like, there's Twitch influencers, YouTubers, TikTokers, Instagram, and like, if you're on like Instagram beauty, you probably don't know the Twitch gamers. But everyone is like kind of socializing and just like, oh, what do you do? Blah, 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 blah. Like it's weird. Nobody there assumes that I'm not a creator because they don't recognize them all. But it's like, I don't know. I guess I just want to like hone in on that. But another thing I wanted to ask is like, is having your own brand isolated to people who work in entertainment? Or does this translate to corporate life, to normal life, to literally everybody else? I think yes, because so like being in this community, you talk about like if you're an influencer and you have, let's say like 1.5 million followers, you're not necessarily huge, you're not like getting recognized like Kim Kardashian, but sometimes when you're out and about, every once in a while, someone will recognize you and say something and say hi and whatever and be like, hey, I love your content. And so like, I guess that goes along with having your own brand type of thing is like every day that you get dressed and go out in public, you're kind of like, you're representing yourself and your own brand. So it's like, if you're, a fashion content creator and then you're going to get coffee and you're like, maybe not feeling your best. So maybe you're just like in a t-shirt and sweatpants or whatever. And one of your followers sees you, that's representative of your brand versus if they see you and you're all dressed up. And not that like necessarily matters or whatever, but it's like, I guess it's just like how you present yourself and you're kind of always on display. And the reason that I say like, is having your own brand, does that translate to other people who are not necessarily in entertainment and maybe not necessarily quote unquote influencers or just people that like have quote unquote fans or whatever? But the reason that I say yes is because like say like you're working in a corporate office and I'll just say you're a businesswoman or whatever. Maybe you work in finance and hedge funds and whatever. And like you're out and about, you're at a bar or whatever, like you could still very easily see people in your own industry out in public, possibly seeing someone who could potentially be your boss later or a client later or someone you would collaborate with later on a project with. So it's like, it kind of still is, like, I feel like it's just less likely you'll run into someone like someone who you'll see again. But it's possible, especially if you were in a small town. Probably not so much if you're in a big town. But I would imagine like dudes who work in hedge fund in New York probably know a lot of each other and probably do see each other out and about every once in a while. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like everyone does, at least to an extent, just in your own personality and your own identity, you do kind of have your own brand and who you are and who you present yourself as. And, you know, are you like well groomed? Are you do you take care of your hygiene or do you not? You know, like those are all things that present yourself, you know, like do you, you know, smell or whatever, like do you shower or whatever? Those are all things that other people see about you and will, for one, like make judgments. I don't want to say judgments, but just like preconceptions, I guess, or like notes on you. And like they kind of like remember that and like associate. It's kind of like the same, like the way that you dress is like an association with you. People know that you know, dress this way. Maybe you dress kind of conservative and you never wear sweaters, or like, I mean, you only wear like long, big sweaters and like baggy pants. And it's like, then if someone saw you outside of that, they would be like, I don't want to say like confused or like startled, but just like surprised maybe. And it's like the same thing in entertainment, just on a larger scale. So I just have been thinking about personal brand. How does it translate? Everyone kind of has their own personal brand to an extent. It's on social media as well. Like even if you only have like 500 followers or whatever, you probably know quite a few of those people. Maybe it's friends and family. Even what you put on social media is your own personal brand and how that translates to who you are as a person. And especially with politics, I think that's a huge one today. That goes on, that like, what are you posting about the current, you know, president or whatever political views that you have? Also on social media translates to how people associate you and what they think about you, and probably do make a lot of preconceived judgments on you or ideas on you just based on like one simple post or one, you know, maybe t-shirt that you're wearing. And people will probably just make a lot of other assumptions on you, right or wrong. I mean, I think as humans, we just do that in general. We just, you know, we see, because you kind of, I don't want to say you have to, but like, you know, you're not going to know someone's whole life story. And so in order to know, like, if you want to be around that person or not, you kind of just make judgments on maybe what they wear or who they talk to or what their job is or who they associate themselves with, which, like I said, is kind of fair, kind of not. Like, people are always going to make assumptions about you. But like, I do think to an extent also, like, your friends and family do represent you to an extent. Well, yes and no. Your friends do. Your family, maybe not so much. But like, how you socialize and interact with the bartender is a representation of you. And I can make a judgment on you based on, like, you know, if I'm out with someone that I don't really know very well, but, you know, we're work buddies and we're hanging for the first time and they're extremely rude to like a server or a bartender, I'm going to make a lot more judgments on you. Like, you're probably kind of a crappy person. Maybe you're, you know, I don't know. I guess I just, like, maybe not a crappy person, you know, so people have bad days, but like I said, like, first impressions are important. And if that's the first time I was seeing someone, that's their own personal brand that they're making for themselves. And I'm making an association that if you're not treating your bartender or server well, you're probably not treating a lot of other people in your life well, or you just don't handle like conflict very well. Maybe not conflict, but like I want to say like problem solving skills, or maybe you're just not like a very understanding person, I guess. I would absolutely make all those assumptions about someone if I was at dinner with them and they were in the server, like, say, made a mistake, which happens often. They, you know, you asked for a dipping sauce and they forgot to bring it, and you finish your meal and you're like annoyed or whatever. They bring you the wrong drink. I think like how you handle those kind of situations is very, very representative of who you are as a person, because I think the little things usually translate to the big things. If your server brings you the wrong drink and you're flipping out, well, what's going to happen when, you're someone that you know or love accidentally gets into a car accident that isn't their fault? Like, you're probably still gonna, I don't know, you probably don't handle conflict well. And I would absolutely make associations about someone based on that. But, it goes both ways. People do have bad days and whatever. And people do deserve like a little bit of grace for sure. So I don't know. I guess I feel like to an extent we all have our own personal brand. We're all actively working on it, whether you're aware of it or not. We talk about this a lot. Just me and my partner talk about like clothes. We've been talking about clothes lately because a lot of his don't fit. And I think also in a little bit of ways, he feels like his clothes don't represent him well. And I've been feeling the same way since we've got out here, is like, I want to work on my closet because I want what I wear to be representative of me. And that's actually not hard. I mean, not easy. It's actually kind of hard, I feel like, to formulate like a closet that represents you. But that's something we've been talking about lately, is like, what you wear does say something about you, whether you want it to or not, whether you meant it to or not, it does. And it does give people a first impression of you and a first, like, associations of who you are. Good or bad. But so I don't know. That's kind of what I've wanted to be working on lately, is like my own personal brand. And how do you like construct a closet or an outfit that represents you? And it's not easy, but I don't know, like back to like the networking thing, and like especially at these events and being at the Streamys and knowing like what I wore to the Streamys sends a message. It says something about me, or at least it makes people who look at me think something. And so like, I don't know, that's like, it's just something I've wanted to like hone in on, and it feels difficult because it kind of goes back to like knowing yourself, knowing who you are as a person. What things do you care about? What is your personal message? And especially in the entertainment industry, and something that I've heard over and over again that seems really important, especially with influencing and videos and TikTok and whatever, is what's your why? Why are you doing this? Why do you want to be an influencer? Why do you want to have a podcast? Why do you want to have a platform? Why? And a big thing, why should people listen to you? What do you have to offer them? What do you bring to the table? And I think all of that kind of goes together with your personal brand and what you wear and how you put yourself out there and how you dress and how you talk and how you speak to other people, how you interact with people, how you interact with important people and like staff, I think both of those are really important. Is, if you meet like a super important person and you kind of just kiss their ass and assume that they're, whatever, just because they have high status, that they can maybe get you somewhere, get something at whatever. And then, you're super like rude to someone who you just don't think is as important. That's telling you of your own personal brand, your own personalities, and your own personal like morals, I feel like. Like, what's your message? And that's kind of what I feel like is like influencing is like clear that someone has a message and has like, a brand, and like, what are you doing here? Why do you have this Instagram account? What is it for? What's the purpose of it? How does it help people? And that's the difference between like everyday people who maybe have more of an office job and aren't as much in the like entertainment industry and don't have a platform. That's where I feel like it feels like a disconnect, but it's similar, is we all have our own message, even if you're, say you went into the sciences and you wanted to be an engineer or maybe a doctor or a lab research tech, and you want to study cancer, because maybe you had lost someone to cancer, and that issue is really important to you. So it's like, maybe you're not an influencer and you're not on the stage and you don't have a platform of people, but you still have a message and you still have this like this passion in your heart as to like change the world by means of lab research study and science. And I think that's absolutely great. And those people are just as important as influencers. Because yeah, that was a really good example. Like that's an example of someone who still has their own personal brand, their own personal ethics and their morals, and like what drives them every day is helping other people. I think that's what a lot of us kind of down to our core drives us is helping others. And how people do that, there's a million different ways, even more than a million different ways to do that. Even if you're not influencing, like I said in that example, someone who's studying and researching in a lab, cancer or other diseases or coronavirus or anything like that is absolutely changing the world. Just, I don't even want to say on a different scale, just in a different way or in a more private way where like maybe we aren't as aware. But yeah, that's still translated, I think. And especially if you love your career and you love what you do, and like maybe even a teacher would be a phenomenal example, severely underpaid, but there's a ton of them that are super passionate and they just, again, to their core, want to help people. And it's translated through their career is helping kids, and on a much more like intimate level is having a class of 30 kids or whatever, and being able to see them develop and grow over a year span and see them graduate and see their hopes and dreams be fulfilled. I think that's another way that someone's personal brand, who maybe isn't famous or has a platform, is absolutely important. And it shines through, I think, through what they wear, how they speak, how they talk to people, how they talk to parents, and that kind of thing. I kind of went on a tangent there. I didn't really mean to do that, but I think it's important to mention, like, everybody kind of at the end of the day has their own, or maybe they don't, but I don't know. I guess I feel that way. Like it's what drives us all, and it's like what connects us all, I think, as people, is like kind of like your mark in this world. And I feel like down to the core, I feel like it is like wanting to help people and going about it in a different means, which is, because I feel like that's definitely, like, we've been talking about branding, and now I'm like, what is my own personal brand? And why did I start this podcast? And why do I feel like I should have a platform or anything? Or why do I feel like there's any space for me in this industry? And I feel like it is because, I do want to help people. I personally really like connecting to people. I love talking to people about like just their deepest, darkest fears and things that they struggle with. Because that's also like something that I'm pretty passionate about, is like mental health and talking about it and making sure that it's like a comfortable topic. Like, I guess, I don't know, my own personal brand, and I hope this translates through the podcast, and I hope, I guess, from the first couple episodes, that this has been displayed, this has been portrayed well, is that I want to create a comfortable environment for a large group of people to be able to not only speak about mental health, but just difficult things, just life's shit that's thrown at you, and just be able to speak about things comfortably. Because I think, in hard things that happen in life, such as death, disease, tragedy, I think, like, at least for me, communication is key, and it's what's comfortable, because again, that's another thing that connects us all humans, is we all can relate to a certain extent. We all do have a certain amount of time on this earth. We all will go eventually. And a lot of us experience difficult things, different things. But like I think like with me personally, a lot of the difficult things that I have gone through or encountered, it was really, really comforting to know that someone else has experienced the same thing. Not because I would hope anyone would experience tragedy, but just to know you're not alone is really it for me. Just knowing you're not alone. Because I think when I was having my own mental problems and stuff, I really felt like very isolated and very like I couldn't talk to anybody about it, because I just felt like crazy. And I think a lot of things with mental health is like you feel like your own thoughts aren't your own and you can't control them and whatever. But I do want to throw in there, for one, whatever outlandish thought that you ever had, odds are on this earth with 8 billion people or whatever, or million or whatever it is, someone else has definitely had the same thought. At least one other person one time has had the same thought. And I think that's really cool. I think it's really nice to know that, like, whatever shit you've gone through, whatever difficult things, whatever mental health, disease, family, grieving, someone else has gone through it over this huge earth with this however many people. Someone else out there has gone through it, and just to know that you're not alone is, I feel like, helpful. And that's kind of what I want to translate through my podcast and my own personal brand is, one, togetherness, a community, a sense of community, and a comfortable space where people can talk about difficult topics. But like that's kind of why I feel like I'm struggling with developing my own personal brand, because it feels like a very general thing, because I do care about fitness and creating a positive fitness environment for specifically women, but anyone, but men too, to have a positive relationship with their body and to know that, like a lot of people have experienced, I think like pretty much anyone who's into fitness and works out, I think like has struggled with, maybe some sort of eating disorder to some degree, or struggled with food at least, or body dysmorphia, or struggling with like any of that kind of thing. Your relationship with working out, are you going, to be fit so that other people like you, or are you going for yourself, and that's something that I'm passionate about. But also mental health is like a kind of a completely different thing, but they are related. They're all related. But yeah, same thing with mental health, and knowing that like other people go to therapy and they get help and there's nothing to be ashamed about that, and that kind of thing. And same thing with, I don't know, I guess, yeah, I'm struggling to like hone in on my own brand because it feels very general, but I feel like that's also me. I think I've said this before in the first episode, is like I don't feel like I love one thing. I feel like I love a lot of things, and I just want people to be comfortable. I think that's really my thing, is like I want to just create a comfortable, casual space for talking about hard things. Like I said, I don't want this to be a self-help book. I don't want it to be, okay, like hard things happen. Like, no, I want to talk about it like shit's hard. Shit's fucking hard. And it can be hard, and we can have our feelings and we can feel them, and you could be mad, you can be sad, you can cry. Like, there's nothing wrong with going through all of your feelings. And that's kind of the space that I want to create, is like feeling your feelings and being in a space where, if something shitty happens to you, you're allowed to be mad about it. You shouldn't like let it consume your life, obviously, but it's also like, it's not about regressing those feelings and shoving them down either. So, that's kind of my thing, is I just want to have a space where we can all be comfortable and be like, you know what? Today I went to the gym and I did realize that I was just doing abs to be skinny because I want to have a snatched waist, and I only have been doing Instagram booty workouts to get my butt bigger so that other people like me, and that's why I went to the gym today. And I just want to be like, you know what? That's fair. That's valid. It's honest at the very least. And I think that's the first step in solving a lot of your own problems, is recognizing them, calling them out for what they are. And I think if you can do that much, you're on the right path, I think just recognizing, just having that conversation with yourself, I feel like that's a huge thing too in general in life, is to just like have conversations with yourself and ask yourself, why do I go to the gym, or why do I do this thing, or why do I binge eat or something, and just trying to talk to yourself about it and try to get down to your own roots of your own things. And then maybe recognizing, maybe I do need outside help, maybe I do want to talk to a therapist and talk to an outside source, because I feel like I can't solve this on my own. And that's a wonderful thing too. That's like another wonderful step in the process. And I think just creating your own habits of this, and creating the habit of talking to yourself, and recognizing when you're in a situation, just all throughout life, when you're in a situation, maybe you're in a relationship, and just talking with yourself and recognizing, you know what, this isn't really serving me. And we don't have to have a huge falling out, and we don't have to hate each other. And I can just be like, you know what, this isn't working. And the same thing is on a smaller scale. If you're ever just at a location where you just don't want to be, but you feel like you have to, and your friends dragged you there, and you were planning on it, and you RSVP, that kind of conversation of being like, you know what, I just don't want to be here, and that's okay. You can always leave the function. You can always, I think a lot of times, like I've said before, we feel trapped. I feel like we have to do certain things because of whatever. And I think a lot of things you don't have to do, that you don't want to do. You just have to be respectful about them, is really the key. And I find that a lot with my own like family and siblings and that kind of thing, is, just because we fight, we have our own disagreements. But you're allowed to disagree with people. You're allowed to do things for yourself that will make other people unhappy, as long as you're respectful, I think. As long as you're not like, I'm not going to your baby shower. It sounds stupid. That would not be cool. But if you were like, you know what, like I've had a really long week, like I'm really sorry, I just don't think I'm in the social capacity to go. But I really hope you have a good time, and I'm going to mail you a present. That's fair. I think as long as you go through things in the right way, these things are fair. I feel like I've gotten a little bit off topic of entertainment, but not really, kind of. But that's the shit we're working on this week. At least the shit I'm working on this week is I just want to work on having like I just spoke for fucking 10 minutes probably about what the fuck is my personal brand, what do I care about, and why am I fucking here making a fucking podcast. But I want to work on honing that down. How do I convey that message in 30 seconds? How do I make that super small so that when someone asks, what is your podcast about? I can like give it to them without shoving it down their throats and wasting 20 minutes of their time. That's what I'm working on this week is, why are we here in 30 seconds? Why am I making this podcast in 30 seconds? And also my own personal branding and my own, like, how do I represent myself when I am out and about? How do I represent this podcast? How do I portray the idea that I want to help people and create a comfortable space for people to talk about hard shit? How do I convey that message when I'm out and about? And obviously, I think it's how you communicate with people, but it's also, how you dress and how you talk about yourself, And that's the other shit that I'm working on this week is confidence in my own work, i.e. this podcast, is obviously when I released it, I was super anxious and I was like, what if everyone hates it? And everyone texts me and is like, that was really stupid and bad. But I want to be confident in my own work because I do know that it's good and I do like this podcast and I am very proud of just the 4 episodes that I've done this far. We're just getting started. But I do like them and I'm proud of them and that's really all that matters. And the truth is some people might not like it and that's okay too. I obviously hope that some people like it, but at least if one person with that, and that's a big thing for me too, is after the first one released, I did get a handful, not a lot, but like, I don't know, maybe like 3 to 5 text messages from people that I don't typically talk to, especially since I left Ohio, saying, hey, like I listened to your first episode, like I really liked it, I really related, I'm graduating this May and I feel so anxious and scared and I really don't know what's next for me. And it's just nice to know that you're also feeling that way too. And I was like, you know what? All of a sudden, it's not about, for me, the followers and the people and that stuff will probably come, I think, personally. But if at least 3 people that I've known in my life listened to that podcast and it made them feel a little bit better or a little bit less alone, then I'm kind of achieving my goal with this podcast, on a small level, but I don't fucking care. If one single person listens to an episode and feels less alone, I'm happy. Then I'm going to keep doing this because I love it. And if it's helping one single person, it's worth it to me. It's worth it to have the software, to do the editing, to do the recording, to set time aside, to make sure that I can record in an area that's quiet. All that's worth it to me. And so for one, if you're one of the people that texted me, because I hope you're still listening to the podcast, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for saying that you were late. I really seriously, like, it made me feel so good because as you can imagine, releasing that podcast, it looked a little confident on Instagram, but I didn't feel super confident. I felt a little anxious and Instagram can be a little high schooly. So I was a little bit like, oh my God, what are people going to think of it? And I think it's difficult to put yourself out there to people who already know you because I've changed a lot since I've moved out here and I've changed my career and all of that. And people already have a preconceived idea of me. And that's more scary to me is being myself to people who already have a preconceived idea of me than being myself to a bunch of strangers because they don't already have thoughts on me, So I can just be whoever I want and they're just like, oh, that's her. Rather than other people who knew me saying, oh, she's changed, which is not a bad thing, by the way. But that was scary to me when releasing this. And so I hope that I'm putting out the right personal brand. I hope that I'm giving out this message of community and relatability and just knowing that you're not alone. And if you're super confused in your early 20s and thinking, what the fuck am I going to do with my life? I'm right there with you. I am right there with you. So that's going to be it for today. I think we're just going to close out with some questions. And like I said at the beginning, if you're listening on Spotify, you can answer these questions there. If you're listening on YouTube, you can put it in the comments. But what is your own personal brand? Please tell me because I would love to know. And maybe it would inspire me a little bit. And then also, do you feel like a personal brand applies to everyone, regardless of career? I'm actually really interested in that answer just because, I don't know. I feel like most people would be like, no, Amber, what the fuck are you talking about? But please answer that one because I'm very curious. And then also, what shit are you working on this week? What are you struggling with? What are you working on? What are you thinking what shit is hard to you this week? And hopefully we're working on it. We're going to make it easier for ourselves in the coming weeks. So let me know on the polls and comments of this episode. And again, thank you so much for joining me. I'm your host, Amber, and I'll see you on the next one because this shit's hard.